Well, good afternoon, good morning. This is Frank and Donna Farr again down here in Katy, Texas. And we have a testimony for you today. We've got Miss Beth Riggins up in Pennsylvania. But before we get started, I just want to read this disclaimer. So first of all, we are not doctors, so we do not diagnose, treat, prescribe for any disease or condition. We are just sharing our experience with Apaches. And since everyone's body is different, your experience may be different as well. So, Miss Beth, would you care to introduce yourself and tell us your story with the patches?
Absolutely. Good morning. So I'm Beth Riggan, and I have been, wow, sharing this amazing story with lots of people. So about a year ago, I unfortunately took a really bad fall. My horse decided to buck me off, and he's a pretty tall boy, so the fall was pretty far. And if you can imagine hitting the ground hard. And I don't know if you can see the photo. Is that up, Frank? That everybody can see?
What?
The photo is up.
The
Yes.
photo. Okay. So, yes, what you see is when I hit the ground and pulled my boot off, and I thought I was okay, but of course I was not. So, in this picture, what you're seeing is a very, very badly broken, dislocated ankle. So at that time, we immediately obviously went to the hospital and got there. And I was immediately sent back to trauma because of the severity of the break and dislocation. So trauma unit came in, doctor came in, they reset it immediately. And that was right before I went into the trauma. That was at the hospital. So yes, at that point, that's where the pain started to set in. So I was monitored very, very closely. At that time, I did not have a ton of pain. By the time I got back into the trauma unit, I did. And when they reset me, I was good. So moving forward, they decided to do surgery with me the very next morning. And they took me back. The surgery was almost 2 hours. And they had to reset. Well, they already reset the bone. But having gone in, she said, this is worse than we thought. We ended up having to put 9 screws in and a plate. So nurse comes in. I'm post-op at this point, and she says to me, Beth, what's your pain level? I said, I don't have any. She said, wait a minute. She said, I need to know on a scale of 1 to 10, what's your pain level? I said, I don't have any. So because of my beliefs and how I choose to heal my body on a daily basis, I trusted what I know and the patches that I use, and reached out to a few people, and they said, Beth, double up. The people, like that we trust, that we know, who understand the technology and the science behind the technology. So there you can see I doubled up. Was in the hospital one more day. Discharge papers, the doctor's like, all right, ready to go home. Woohoo! And then came the list of the do's and don'ts and the whatnots. And she said, okay, you're going to be non-weight bearing for 10 weeks. And I said, wait, what? She said, yeah, you no weight bearing at all for 10 weeks, no driving. And of course, devastation set in, reality set in. And that was a hard pill to swallow, to be quite honest. I have horses at home. I have dogs at home. I have a husband at home. So, there's that was a lot for me. But it was what it was. And nurse came in She said, all right, we're sending you home. You just need to go downstairs to the pharmacy in the hospital and pick up your Oxy. I said, what do I need Oxy for? She said, well, don't you have any pain? I said, no, I don't need Oxy. She said, well, you might. And whatever. She said, okay, if anything, if you don't want to take the Oxy, just pick it up, take Tylenol. Okay, great. Yeah. So pick up the Oxy, go home, get situated. And I will tell you, and I've said it, and Frank and Donnie, we've talked about it. I never took one Tylenol. I never took one Oxy because I had no pain. With that kind of break and that kind of surgery, okay, 2-week post-op, I had to go back in, of course, to be evaluated. And that right there was the hard cast. It was a splint. It was a hard splint that I had on. And I was preparing myself, which I was told I was going to go in a cast, and yay. So doctor comes in and had my evaluation done. And she said, all right, they took the hard splint off, and she made me flex. She said, I want to do some tests. I want you to flex, point, side to side, and do as much as you can. And I said, okay. And she put her hand up. She said, push. I pushed. She took my foot, flexed it back. And I looked at her face and she said, this is like not normal. This is pretty remarkable. Okay, let's go side to side. So side to side, side to side. You guys, so she says, all right, what are you doing? And she said, let me guess, it's those stickers. And I said, well, I'm probably going to tell you it is. And she said, no pain. I said, no pain. She said, based on the evaluation that I just did, we're going to let you go in a boot, 50% weight bearing. You guys, that was 2 weeks. Wow. I never went in a hard cast. I went straight into a boot for 2 weeks. I went back in 4 weeks. So that was 6 weeks post-op. Had another set of x-rays done. Was waiting for her to come in the room. She comes in the room and she says, okay, let's take a look at your x-rays. Okay. And she said, all right, like, this is truly not like usual. And I said, what? At that point, I did not know that I had cartilage that was completely severed on the inside of my ankle. I knew about the breaks, obviously, and the dislocation, but I, at that point, had no knowledge of the severed cartilage. And she said, Beth, this cartilage is 75% healed. Wow. I was like, oh, okay, that's a good thing. And I'm glad you didn't tell me, because I would have freaked out had I known there was torn cartilage in addition to the broken bones and all the other things that were going on. And of course, I had I'm always wearing my patches. And she said, I got to tell you, she said, you are so far ahead of the game here. She said, at this point, based on what I'm seeing, you're going 100% weight bearing.
Wow.
Do you have any idea the relief, I mean, that I had? And I said, and I'm sure Dr. Davies was her name at the hospital. And I said, Dr. Davies, I need to know, based on you following, like the whole process of this break and whatnot, I said, do you feel that I'm where everybody should be? Or am I ahead of the game? And she said, you are 100% 4 weeks ahead of where you should be.
Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah.
That is amazing.
Yes. It it's a testament, it's one of
Right.
those things where you
Right.
you know what you know.
Can you tell now, is there any difference in that ankle and the other ankle as far as mobility or whatever goes?
The mobility is exactly the same. You cannot, I had a scar that was probably 7 inches long. You can't see it. You can barely see it. And then I had another incision on the outside that wasn't nearly as long, but you can barely see the scars and the flexibility. And also, I guess I should have noted, uh, when I had my second week follow up and my 6 week follow up, she like, I think they expected nerve damage because of how bad the break was. And she said, "Can you feel this?" I said, "Well, sure." And she said, "You can feel this?" And I said, "Yeah." I I don't think she expected me to have the feeling that I had, expecting
Right.
numbness. Was it
Right.
100%? No. I mean, it felt a little weird, but I certainly had no numbness, no, nothing to the degree that I think that she expected I would have had in that ankle. So it is back to normal. It was actually back, I would say, for the most part, to normal within 3 months after the break. Everybody was kind of laughing because, uh, sorry if I'm getting long-winded, but
Wow.
I didn't even realize it. But after I got the boot off and she said, "Yeah, you're good. You're 100% weight bearing." It was about 4 days after, and I have horses and a little mini donkey, and the little mini donkey decided he was going to take exit stage left when I brought him in the barn, which he normally never does. And I panicked, and I'm running across the side yard into the front yard after him. And I'm halfway to him, and I'm like, wait, I'm running. I caught myself thinking, I just got my boot off and I just broke my ankle, and it was, like 2 months after that, and I'm running through my yard, and yeah, something that I didn't think, I would be able to run for a longer period of time than just 2 months, 3 months. It was about 2, 3 months.
Let me ask you another question here. What would you say to people that they've maybe started using the patches and they've only been on them like a month or so and not getting results that they think they ought to or something, even though we would told them it would take up to 6 months or more. What would you say to these folks?
I would say to these folks, when you find a something that you know you have, well, let put it this way, you got to give it time. Whatever is going on with you, it took how many months to get to the point that you don't feel good, or you want to, help your body heal something. You've got to give it the same amount of time to let the patches work. People give up too easily. Having done this for 3 years now, and knowing that if you do the right things, you trust the process, you trust the science, I mean, I tell people who sometimes give up a little too easy, dig in, read a little bit, and and be patient. You don't, like, okay, here's where I'm going to go on my soapbox. You go to the doctor, you take a pill, and you got to take a pill to take a pill to take a pill, and you're taking a pill forever. But you take the pill, right? Because you want to help yourself. When you're committed to healing yourself naturally through this technology, you got to make the same commitment. You you patch your patch every day, 12 hours on, 12 hours off, and you let it happen. And you will find, if you're patient, you'll see things. Not everybody gets the same results. Not everybody has, we know this because everybody's bodies are different.
Right.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Stay the
And I know,
course.
right. And I know that we've been on here before about your dad. And how old is your dad?
Yes. My dad is 93. And can I tell you, this is exciting because I didn't share this yet.
Okay.
I was with him last Friday, and when I came in, and of course he's wheelchair bound and he is an amputee with one leg. So his one leg is kind of like his prized possession. And the man never complains. He never
Right.
did. But he said, Beth, I said, okay, are you going to say hi or good morning? He said, I got to tell you, he said, his primary care physician had just left. She has to visit him so many times a year. And she was there that day and she ran the whole gamut. And he said, Beth, he said, yeah, he said, Beth, he said, she tickled my foot. And I said, what do you mean? He said, do you understand? I had no feeling in that left foot for almost 2 years. There was numbness there. I had no feeling there. He said, when she tickled my foot this morning, I 100% felt it. So
Wow.
it's the little things, but
Right.
yeah,
It just keeps getting better and better. You know, I know
yeah.
with
I mean, with him
you
monitoring this, he's been patching for 2 years, off of 6 of 17 medications, sleeps like a baby, feels like he's 65. He'll tell you that straight up.
right.
And now with the loss, I mean, the loss of the numbness that's there, and he's getting feeling back in that leg, which what does that tell us? There's nerve regeneration. Hallelujah.
Amen. As the little boy says, it just keeps getting better and better.
Yes, it
Beth, we
does.
sure do appreciate your time. We know how busy you are. You've got horses to take care of. You got a husband to take care of. You got a business to take care of. You got time to take care of everything except for yourself, and you pat yourself for that. And but it's been an honor again to call you a friend, and an honor to have you on here and sharing your testimony. Thank you so much. And by the way, if any anyone on here knows Beth and they want to know more information about these patches, get in touch with her, and she can get you more information, show you how to get the best pricing, or if you know us, we'd be happy to do the same for you. So everyone have a blessed day. God bless you, and we love you. Thanks again, Beth.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, ma'am. Bye bye.
Bye bye.
Nice to meet you. Channel.